Thank you for giving me some time to speak to you here today. I appreciate the invitation from the folks at Terrapin. This is my second time presenting at this conference. Last time I was here was 2010. So I've had a fair bit of things happen both at Choice in the interim and in my own life, so I'll speak about that in a minute. And then I'm going to go into a little bit about how the Choice Privileges program has evolved over the past 5 years from being essentially a North American focused program to a global program, and some of the things we did to make that happen. And some of it kind of dovetails to what Tom was speaking about, the last presenter, but trying to be consistent right across all of the touch points and putting out the same word so that that becomes the trust factor because you hear the same message wherever you interact with the brand. And a little bit of that same methodology we put in place. So what's new with Choice and me since the last time I was here? For Choice, we're up to over 6,100 hotels worldwide. I think in 2010, which was exactly 2 years ago when I was here, we were around 5,900, so we've added about 200 hotels. So we're very excited about that, and over the next couple of years, we really expect to see our upscale brand Cambria Suites, which you may not have heard of because there aren't any Cambria Suites here on this side of the ocean. But it's our upscale brand in North America, and we should see a lot of development of that brand in 13 and 14. We spent the last 2 years really laying the groundwork to put that particular brand in many major markets in the U.S. Well, the original rollout back in 2008 were in secondary and tertiary markets, so we're quite excited about that. From a Choice Privileges loyalty program perspective, we now have over 16 million members, so we're very excited about that. In the room, Choice Privileges members. Hands? Anybody? Somebody? Bueller. Okay. So I just heard the call center is having a slow day. Maybe you want to call and join as soon as I finish my presentation. But at any rate, so there's 16 million, none of you, but 16 million members of the program. When I was here 2 years ago, we were at 12 million. So over the past 2 years, we've been adding 2 million a year per year. So pretty aggressive growth, and we're obviously quite pleased about that in growing the customer base. Now, about me over the last 2 years, I've gotten married. No applause, we want to make some noise, right? Don't we want to get, okay, good. Sold, bought, and moved a house, and I tore my Achilles tendon. So now you might say, that's good news, right? So that's why I'm not really trying to walk around too much also. I'm trying to stand kind of still. So now that seems like, okay, well, that may be a fair bit to happen over the past 2 years, but in fact, that was only within 3 weeks of this past August. So I tore my Achilles tendon August 1st. I got married on August 11th, and I moved on August 20th. So needless to say, this is multitasking to a degree that nobody should aspire to try and do this many things all at the same time. I mention all of this when it gets wrapping it back to loyalty, and that I want to thank my new bride in absentia. She unfortunately couldn't make the trip, for her loyalty to me and to us as a unit by getting us through all of this, because I couldn't contribute very much in terms of moving and boxes and packing, or getting the wedding off the ground the last 10 days before it, because I was basically sitting on a couch with my leg in a leg cast all the way up to my knee. So it was an interesting period of time. So I mentioned her loyalty was well demonstrated, so I've made a good choice, I'm sure. So moving on to the actual meat of the matter in terms of a global brand, I went looking sort of what are the common definitions of sort of brand strength or global branding. And I touched base on the website for Interbrand, a well-known branding management company. And they've got a very in-depth explanation of how they look at brands, and in particular, the third element, brand strength, and how that relates directly to loyalty, I found really engaging or noteworthy. And that measures the ability of the brand to create loyalty, and therefore to keep generating demand and profit into the future. And the last part of that, to keep generating, I think shows that it's sort of repetition, right? Is what's keep is an ongoing process. You want to have that happen again and again. In the industry that I'm in hotel, we want to see those transactions not just be a one-time a year transaction. We need those to happen multiple times per year, multiple years going forward. So, built on repetition, positive experiences, and sort of again ties into how trust, where you hear the same messaging over many touch points, but positive experiences occurring again and again, and in fact you want them to appear or occur again and again and again and again, right? Well, even if people aren't necessarily buying every time, but when they shop or when they interact on the website or anything they might do once they're in the program, when they hear messaging from you via email or in a newsletter, you want them to still feel a positive experience over and over. So that consistent brand experience has to, what I think is worked through and what we focused on within Choice through 3 paths. The purchase path, which is making sure when someone's doing a booking, whether that's online, at the hotel, or by the call centers, they have a consistent message from a branding perspective. On location, when they're at our hotels, a physical location, do they see the same messaging? Do they see the same branding? Is that, again, a consistent experience, whether they're at a hotel in the US or a hotel here in London or a hotel in Melbourne, Australia? Do they see the same thing? And then the loyalty program itself is, we communicate obviously outbound to the members on a regular basis, and do they hear or see the same type of messaging regardless of where they are around the world, whether they change programs, because a member can move, and then they change the program that they're a part of. If they were living in the US, they move to London, they can actually change the program designation of where they are. So is there consistency within the program itself? So for us at Choice, global branding of the Choice Privileges program has only been a relatively new endeavor since 2007. And there are a couple elements to sort of the monster that we've been tackling. For one, these are actually all the Choice Hotels brands. You may not be familiar with the right 2/3 of the page or 3/4. You should be familiar to some degree with the hotels here on the far left. Those are the brands primarily here in Europe, our Comfort, Clarion, and Quality. The other brands are primarily North America, US and Canada. Some of them have individual locations in some other parts of the world as well. So we needed something to bring the brand experience, all of these various brand experiences together. And then we needed to bring the world map together as well. So this is the sort of the spread of where Choice Hotels are located outside of the US. So you see we're in almost 40 countries just about where there are Choice Hotels. So you see it's quite a broad portfolio that we have for our 6,100 hotels. And we needed a way to kind of, again, pull everybody together from a member perspective in terms of what they think about Choice. Because Choice Hotels, as a name, doesn't really have a lot of brand equity, right? That's the corporate name, that's who pays me, that's what's on the check, but it doesn't mean anything to any consumers. These individual hotel brands across the top mean something, and when they're in a particular country, they see a different brand everywhere. So what we've tried to do is make Choice Privileges be the Great Unifier. It sounds like like Conan the Barbarian or something, but it's not that dramatic. But we're trying to build something that would bring everybody, regardless of where they are around the world, to understand that they're part of one community, and then speak to them the same way, regardless of where they are and what they experience. Experience the same thing, I should say, around the world. So, where we are with the logo is sort of been a work in progress. We started here. So in 2006, this was the Choice Privileges logo, again, only in North America. The program wasn't a global program. You see, it was kind of a clunky logo. It was italics, it was different fonts, different sizes, the logos, in one straight line. We felt, and this is around the same time that I joined Choice in 2007, that this wasn't a great representation of something that was supposed to unify or really be pleasing to the eye when you would try to put it out there for consumers to see and hopefully engage with. So we went through an effort in 2007 to rebrand the program, and that's how we evolved to the logo you see on the bottom of the screen. Now, besides it, obviously I like it because I was part of the team that built it, but besides it being just cleaner and neater, more organized, I want to talk about the yellow bar. And you'll notice that the yellow bar has a smaller dot and a larger dot, and that's very intentional from trying to unify the brands. We put the brands all in under this bar, so they're all together, but the bar, the two dots, represent sort of motion and momentum. We wanted, hopefully, to set sort of a subconscious impact that the program is a growth vehicle, that your experiences may start small, but over time staying with us, they will evolve as you're reading left to right to a larger sort of memory bank of experiences, hopefully while you're traveling and hopefully staying with us. Also, your point balance, right? We have a small point, so you may start in the program at a low level of points, but you will evolve over time by staying at the brands to a larger point balance and being able to do more with that currency. So the bar was a very intentional piece of the logo development to, again, tie the program together from a branding perspective to indicate that we want the program to make the members feel that there's momentum, there's progress by joining it, and then it'll still also have the overlying tie-in factor for all the brands around the world. So again, to go over the sort of the evolution of the materials, this is the way the US program was marketed back in 2006. This was the brochure in the hotel. See, kind of choppy branding, logos, different fonts, different sizes. That was actually the member card back in 2006. And so where we are today, and this is globally, the brochure does have a slightly different look, and I'll get to that in a second, but this template is the way the current brochure looks in all of the Choice hotels that are part of the Choice Privileges program. And you see the member card at the top on the far right. So you see a much cleaner presentation. Now, when we talk about the brochure specifically, again, this is the US brochure. And then we rolled out over time to make sure that regardless of where in the world members see the program and where the hotel is, they see the same style, the same merchandising. That helps because in the hotels, the brochure is obviously at the front desk. So you may walk into a hotel that you're already planning to say, be a member, and walk into a hotel in Paris, and then, but your travel may take you to London, and you'll say, oh, that's right, it's tied to the same program. I should make sure my member number is in it, maybe a different brand, right? You may have joined at a Comfort in Paris, you may be staying at a Quality in London. You may not automatically remember that those are tied together, but you see the same brochure in the lobby, oh yeah, this is also a Choice Privileges hotel, I gotta make sure my member number is part of this stay, so they get points. So we tried to make the presentation look very similar. So if you see the French, German, and Italian versions of the brochure here on this page. So then we looked at, that's the in-hotel kind of view of the world and making sure it's consistent across, regardless of geography. And then from a communications perspective, what you see here are member communications. US members might receive or have received a communication, looks like the view on the left. And then on the right is what the European members have recently received as a communication. You see, again, it's laid out relatively similarly. Now, in this case, a member, I mentioned that, if a member moves from one country to another, they might change program designations. So that might be the only time they see what the two different types look like. And that's not a common occurrence. But what is important and what helps by having these be similar is from a management and sort of resource perspective internally at Choice. So we handle all of the creative development and content of our outbound communications internally within the corporate team that I manage. So for us to know exactly sort of the content elements that we need, how many of them, what size they are in a very consistent fashion, month to month, week to week, we can plan out pretty effectively and know the amount of resources we need to fill the various content pieces of the newsletters. We're not scrambling around, well, we have a newsletter with 8 content items, 3 promotions, and 5 partners in the US, and then in Europe we might have a different kind of newsletter with 7 promotions and 2 partners. This way we have a similar look and feel across, but from a design where we can plan how much content and what kind of content we need consistently across the geography. So it helps us from a management perspective. This is a view of the Choice Privileges online mall. And this is 2 looks at the US version on the left and the UK version on the right. So in this case, a member can look at all of the versions of the online mall to earn points. You can go on and say, oh, I'm just curious, what does the mall look like if I was a UK resident versus a US resident? And what they would see is very little difference. There are a couple of slight differences in terms of the look and feel and some of the iconography. But for the most part, it's the same, and it's hard to see, I know, on this screen, but if you can, the brands are what's different, right? The merchants on the UK mall are actually merchants here in the UK. And on the US version, these are primarily US-based merchants. So otherwise, it's pretty much an identical piece. But again, this is an efficiency for us from managing the program. We know when we need to make changes, we need to modify how we're speaking to the customers on the mall, we only have to manage certain elements and deploy it universally, enterprise-wide, across all the malls and all the countries where the malls are in effect. So it helps us. So why does it matter overall, this global, unified, same tone, same brand kind of effort that we've been putting forward for the past 5 years? For one, it ties all the hotels together globally, and I mentioned that this way members see the same kind of collateral regardless of where they are around the world. But it also helps in a secondary fashion. All of our hotels, all 6,100, are franchises. So that means we have, I wouldn't say there's 6,100 individual owners, but there's probably, give or take, say 5,000 individual owners, either companies or individuals. And what the program then, again with a unified presentation, brings those people together, right? All of our franchisees are part of a greater community. Now, a lot of times what happens is our franchisees are in communities of either the local other hotels that are Choice hotels, where they live and operate, so they feel sort of a unified sense with that group, or they feel unity amongst their brand. So if you were a Comfort owner, you might interact with other comfort owners around in the US or around the world and feel you have some similar experience because you work on the same brand. But what the Choice Privileges program does, it gives all the owners, regardless of brand, something that's unifying for them to talk about, but also to talk to Choice about. So it's something else that really helps us in our franchise relationships from corporate and dealing with the individual owners of the properties. So it's helpful in that way. The second point, promotions become global. Before the program had rolled out outside the US and Canada, if you were a member in the US, traveled overseas, you couldn't take advantage of the promotions that we would normally run. And all of Choice major high-value promotions are tied to the program. You must be a member. So by making the program now be a global program, whether you're a US member and you travel to Europe or you travel to Australia, you still get the same promotional benefit, regardless of where you're staying. I think that's important, just from making sure everyone feels that they're not limited by traveling overseas. They need to change brands. They can stay within the Choice program, still take advantage of the points, hopefully they find value when it comes to redeeming. And then the last point I think I mentioned a couple of times is simplifies creative development. By having a consistency of the design, we know exactly how many elements we need to update, whether it be electronic, whether it be communications, the website, print collateral material, all with a similar look and feel, easier to plan when we're going to make adjustments to those pieces. So, I mean, obviously in the end, is it working, right? Are we in fact seeing more members? Now there's no members here, so the answer would be no. If I ask this room, is it working? No, nobody's a part of the program. But other than the people in the room, since 2007 we had about 200,000 members outside of the US. You see, in this year, at the end of September, we're over 1 million members outside of the US. So you see a steady growth, and actually it's been relatively increasing its pace in terms of adding new members to the program outside of the US. So we're very encouraged by this. This is obviously very important to us from not just from the program inside perspective, but also from a corporate perspective. This makes our franchisees and our hotel developers even more interested in the brands from a development perspective because of the strength of the loyalty program. It's easier to develop more hotels around the world when you can boast that your program has more members around the world. And so this is why this is a key initiative for us to continue to expand the program, and the common branding helps to that effort. So what's next? Where are we headed, or what do we need to do to keep it going? And some of these are brand related, some of these aren't, but better integration online and mobile for the brand is one thing that's important for us that we really have to work on hard in 2013. There are still some websites in Europe particularly, there are .uk, .de, .it, various other ones, that don't have absolute consistent branding with what a customer might see on the .com site based in the US. So we really need to make a stronger effort to make a unified look across the websites. Also mobile, which is the great sort of unknown, the growing piece of the business. Our mobile apps are not necessarily universally functionally the same, whether it be in the US or outside the US, so we have to do a better job of that as well. So we've identified that, so if anyone has any extra IT resources they'd like to give me to take back, I'd be happy to, because we're definitely constrained and we need to make a significant investment there. We do want to conquer the rest of the world, so if you want to own a hotel, get in touch with me and I'll hook you up with our development people, because there are plenty of, you saw the map, there's still plenty of countries where we don't have Choice hotels, and we'd love to put our flag down in many of them. Part of what I do is work on the partnerships of the program, so I'm looking for global partners. The program has a significant portfolio of partners in the US. We need more in Europe, we need more in Asia Pacific, so if anyone represents a brand or a company that could be a good partner for our loyalty program, I'm interested in talking to you, so track me down over the next day. And then finally, social media. And there's been obviously lots of discussions here at this conference about social, and you know, I'm collecting ideas and looking for better ways to leverage the program and the brand globally through social. How do we make the program's brand effective and efficient from a global perspective, where I would not say we're close to that yet. We're definitely in the initial stages of trying to figure that out, but that's a big effort as well for us for 2013. And that's what I have. Appreciate the time. Thank you.